Hello, and welcome back to Sharing a Chapter a Day. This is Do, Ra, me, and today I will be reading Chapter 124 of Engagement in Peril by Dara, Odoe, Sok. Chapter 124 is titled Acceptance of the Demon Child. Still in grief of the loss of his angelic young patient, the good doctor made a sudden decision. Without bothering to think about what his wife would say about his decision, once the child grandparent had mentioned that they were fearful of the child and were willing to give him up for adoption, the good doctor quickly thought it over and asked for the permission of the Shinigamis to adopt the demon-like child as his own. Without questioning his intention or bothering to hesitate against his request, the recently aged and scared out of their mind couple thought it over and thought that the doctor would be a good fit for their demon-like grandchild, who was their offspring, who was the offspring of their beloved baby, Kushina. In agreement, they allowed and gave the good captain their permission to be the child's legal guardian. After their talks and questions, the Shinigami couple were driven back to their home without their daughter and or grandchild in their embrace. Sad and lost, they returned to their humble home. They discussed what they would do, or what they would say to Kushina's two younger siblings when they get back to their home. How they would go about to tell them of their loving sister's passing. They had planned to tell their younger children that Kushina had gone to a better place, to heaven, of course, to be with their grandparents and many ancestors. They went home and waited for the autopsy report and their dead child's body for burial. Hopeful and wishing the saddened couple well, the good captain went over what he wanted to tell or how he'd go about telling his sweet wife of his decision about adopting Kushina's child. Before calling the missus, the Navy captain called up the legal department on the Marine Command and asked what forms he would need to fill and file to adopt and sponsor Kushina's child as his own. He called his wife, who was at their military housing compound on the command's ground. After a few rings, the good doctor's sweet wife answered the phone. Taylor resident, Mrs. Taylor speaking. How can I help you? She asked of the caller. Hi, honey, it's me. How's your day? The good doctor said, trying to sweet talk his wife into something that he had decided. Hi, darling, how are you? How's your day there? She too questioned his intentions for calling her in the middle of the day. Captain Taylor went on to explain what all just had happened that morning with Kushina and of her baby to his loving wife. Mrs. Taylor had heard of Kushina's before, and how sad her story was then. She knew all about Kushina from the televised news and newspaper clipping that her husband had kept in his scrapbook, and also her husband had talked of Kushina as his patient at the Marine Corps Command medical facility when they were home during their shared dinner together. Mrs. Taylor thought it seemed sort of odd that her husband was fascinated with Kushina's story, but she thought nothing of it, nothing more than just like that, just a fascination, she thought, and collecting paper clipping and such was one of her husband's many hobbies. After Captain Taylor explained the death of Kushina, how and what they tried to do to get her back, and how guilty he felt about her early passing, he also mentioned that he had talked to the child's grandparent and how they were fearful of bringing him to their home. He finally told his sweet wife of his sudden decision without talking to her about it. You know, honey, we have been trying to have our own child for a while now, and it's my fault that we are unable to conceive all these past years. Rambling on and not allowing a word from his Mrs. Taylor, he continued, I'm sorry for that, honey. Well, I was thinking if I could adopt this poor child who had just lost his young mother and who has no one else in the world that would want him. I was thinking, well, I was hoping that we would adopt this child and take him in as our own child. Practically begging, the good captain calmly and happily explained to his sweet wife on the other end of the phone line. After a good long silence on her end, Mrs. Taylor, feeling so sorry for Kushina's passing, and worried about her husband's state of mind and depression, shaking her head in agreement without anyone noticing, calmly answered her anxious dear husband across the phone line away. Dear husband of mine, I think it is a terrific idea that we adopt this child you strongly feel about. I think that would be it would be I think he would be a blessing for us both. Let's talk more about this adoption when you come home tonight, okay? She questioned and reassured her husband of her happy agreement to his begging wants and desire. Happily, the good captain agreed and hung up the phone after a few more comments and I love yous toward his sweet wife across the way. Joyed and elated from his wife's agreement, the captain went about to assist the medical examiner with Kushina's dead body. Her family was waiting for the write-up and document of her death and passing. Several days later, after he received the proper documents and paperwork he needed to move on with his adoption of the child, and with the final autopsy report in hand and ready to give and ready to be given to Kushina's parent, the good captain and the child's blood parent grandparents once again met up in his office, and with the assistance of the native Japanese translator, they signed over to each other's custody and understanding of who would be taking care of the child. Before their goodbyes that afternoon, Captain Taylor gave both Kushina's parents long warm embraces, happy of the turnover of custody and saddened from their child's tragic death. He was also invited to Kushina's family home to witness the proceeding and ritual of Kushina's death and cremation. Kushina's body was shortly turned over to her parent, and after several days of ritual and ancestral prayers and such, and with the good doctor's captain and his sweet wife in the audience, Kushina's body was cremated and returned to the ocean and earth that it was once came from. After the cremation and dispersal of her ashes about the ocean and the earth, guests and family returned to the family's small humble home for small bits of snacks and chatter. A small monument with Kushina's name and picture was affixed with the family ancestral shrine, where her parents and siblings routinely prayed to on a daily basis. Before leaving and seeing the Kushina's family for the last time, the good captain told and promised them that he will watch over and carefully monitor the progress and growth of their grandchild. With all these many saddened occasions and gatherings, the good captain and his wife hadn't bothered to name Kushina's baby as yet. He promised them that he would send them pictures of Kushina's child each step of his growth. Finally, after Kushina's burial and cremation ceremony, Captain Taylor took his sweet wife to see the child for the very first time, who was being cared for at the military medical facility nursery. He hadn't bothered to mention to his darling wife that the child was born with a long demonic-like tail, and that several days earlier he had cut and removed the tail once he had approved of the child's grandparent to adopt him. Besides cutting off the child's naturally conceived tail, the good captain also circumcised the mixed breed male infant. Both the procedure to remove the tail and excess penile skin were pretty quick and painless. Needn't bothering to locally anesthetize the child's body part. With a sharp scalpel in hand and with his steady-like precision, Captain Taylor's cut was quick and the pain was minimal at most. With some betadine liquid spray atop and the wounded bandage, the healing of the removal of excess skin and tail was quick, where an unnoticeable scar was left behind for anyone to think the wiser. The good captain, with his loving wife by his side, arrived to the nursery that morning. To his surprise, the once reddish child had changed his hue from red to lighter brown. The child seemed to have a new aura about him. His pupil began to display the same color of that his mother. It seemed that the child may have had the same hazel eye of the late beloved Kushina Shinigami. Once Mrs. Taylor saw the sight of the child, she was overjoyed. Amazed with the long and heavy size of the infant, she questioned her beloved husband. Is he okay? For him being that large, is he a healthy baby, honey? With her husband's medical opinion and loving reassurance, she embraced and kissed him in extreme joy for that they now have a child to call their own. Their very own child to raise, take care of, and to look after as they both grow old together. Thanking her husband for his sudden decision without bothering to console her about the matter, and lovingly thanking him while they were assuming to embrace each other, the new parents embraced each other in the presence of their new baby boy. The child seemed to smile with his new parents' warm embrace and makeouts. What not? The demon child giggled a couple of times, catching their attention across the glass window. In awe and amusement, what will they call him, babe? In awe and amusement, What would we call him, babe? Mrs. Taylor had asked her loving husband. The captain took a moment or two and answered in the only name he could recall. Remember that he had heard from Kushina. It was the last word of Kushina's before she had died that horrible morning. Shinshin. Shinshin Shinagami. That's what we would call him. Without questions or bothering to rebut the naming of their newly adopted child, she kissed him and agreed with the name of the child. Shinshin sounds good, honey. Shinshin sounds good, honey. Let's call him that, she said as they kissed and embraced each other in a hearty agreement. Thank you for listening. This is the end of chapter 124. Be on the lookout for chapter 125, titled Shinshin Comes Home with the Tailor. This is Do, Ra, me, and I'll see you later. Thank you.